Mental strength isn't about avoiding struggle. It's about giving struggle a reason to exist. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. Perfection breaks you, resilience builds you. When we talk about becoming mentally strong, most people immediately think of toughness. They think of not showing emotions, of being unshaken no matter what happens, of keeping a straight face even when life throws a storm at them. But real strength doesn't come from hiding what you feel. Real strength begins with understanding why you must endure, why you must rise, why you must stay grounded in the first place. Without a why, strength becomes a mask, something fragile that shatters the moment pressure intensifies. With a why, strength becomes rooted, alive, and enduring. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. Both lose their jobs unexpectedly. One of them falls apart. They panic, they blame, they lose their sense of identity. The other also feels fear, also feels uncertainty, but they hold on. They hold on not because they are naturally stronger, but because their why is clear. Maybe it's providing for their family. Maybe it's the vision of building something of their own. Maybe it's the drive to prove that setbacks don't define them. That why transforms the weight of the burden into something meaningful, something they are willing to carry. Mental strength is not about eliminating struggle. It is about redefining it. If you know why you are struggling, the struggle has purpose. And when struggle has purpose, the human spirit can endure far more than we ever imagined. People can push beyond physical limits, beyond emotional exhaustion, beyond fear, if their why is clear enough. History gives us countless examples of this. In moments of great adversity, the strongest individuals weren't always the ones with the most resources, the most skill, or the most talent. They were the ones with the deepest reason to keep going. Think of the mother who lifts herself out of despair to protect her child. Think of the soldier who endures unimaginable conditions not because they love war, but because they believe in protecting those at home. Think of the inventor who faces rejection after rejection, not because they enjoy failure, but because they see a future no one else sees. Their strength doesn't come from their circumstances. It comes from their clarity of why. This is why becoming mentally strong begins with self-reflection. If you don't know why you wake up every day, if you don't know why you are chasing that career, if you don't know why you're facing your fears, then your strength will fade the moment hardship arrives. The why is the anchor. It keeps you steady when the winds of doubt blow. Without it, you drift. With it, you can weather storms. Let's think about it in the simplest way. Suppose you decide to run a marathon. You start training. The first few days are exciting. You feel motivated. But soon the early mornings feel heavy, your body aches, the excitement fades. If your why is shallow, like proving to others you can do it, you'll probably quit when it gets too hard. But if your why is rooted, like raising awareness for a cause you believe in, or proving to yourself that discipline can rewrite your life, you'll keep going even when it hurts. The body will scream to stop, but the mind will whisper, remember why you started. That whisper is strength. Mental toughness is not born in silence. It is born in dialogue between your purpose and your pain. Every challenge asks the same question. Why are you doing this? And if you have no answer, the challenge wins. But if your answer is clear, the challenge becomes fuel. The more pain, the more resistance, the more your why matters. Too often, we confuse mental strength with the absence of vulnerability. We think strong people never cry, never break, never bend. But the strongest people are often the ones who have cried the most, who have bent but refused to break, who have been brought to their knees but stood up again, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Their why gave them no other choice. Ask yourself this: what makes you endure? What makes you fight when it would be easier to quit? What makes you stand tall when the world pushes you down? The answer will not be the same for everyone. For some, it's love. For others, it's responsibility. For some, it's a vision of the future. For others, it's a refusal to let their story end in defeat. But there must be an answer. Without it, strength is an illusion. With it, strength is unshakable. When you see someone who seems mentally unbreakable, don't just admire their resilience. Look deeper. Look for the fire beneath their calm. Look for the reason they refuse to surrender. They are not superhuman. They have simply built their strength on the foundation of why. That's the secret. It isn't about avoiding struggle. It's about giving struggle a reason to exist. When life becomes heavy, when obstacles seem endless, when the path feels uncertain, the strongest thing you can do is return to your why. It is the compass that points you forward when everything around you is pulling you backward. It is the invisible shield that absorbs the blows and keeps you moving. It is the quiet force that whispers in your ear, "Don't stop now. This matters." There is a truth that most of us resist because it feels uncomfortable to accept. No matter how much we plan, no matter how much we prepare, no matter how much we try to manage life, we are never fully in control. We are not in control of the weather. We are not in control of the economy. We are not in control of how others treat us, what they think of us, or the choices they make. Life is unpredictable, and the more we try to grip it tightly, the more it slips through our fingers. But there is something we are always in control of, something that no circumstance can take from us. We are in control of our response, and that is where mental strength is truly defined. Think about it. Two people face the same rejection. One allows it to define their worth, spiraling into self-doubt and paralysis. The other feels the sting too, but they choose a different response. They use the rejection as feedback, as redirection, as fuel. The difference between the two isn't in what happened, it's in how they chose to respond. Mental strength is not about creating a life free from chaos, but about creating a mindset that can navigate chaos with clarity. The strongest individuals are not those who bend the world to their will, but those who remain steady when the world refuses to bend. They understand that control is limited, but response is limitless. Consider the story of a sailor at sea. They cannot control the winds, they cannot control the storms, they cannot control the currents. But they can adjust their sails, they can choose their direction, they can decide whether to panic or to navigate. This is the essence of mental strength, not in denying the storm, but in mastering the response to it. Every day, life presents us with situations outside our control, traffic that makes us late, an email filled with criticism, a sudden loss we never expected. In those moments, frustration rises because we want to change what cannot be changed. But strength grows when we shift our focus from the uncontrollable to the controllable. We cannot erase the situation, but we can choose our perspective. We can choose whether to respond with anger, with patience, with resilience, or with grace. This shift is not easy. It requires training the mind to pause, because our first instinct is often reaction. Someone insults us, and the immediate urge is to snap back. Life disappoints us, and the reflex is to complain or give up. Reaction is automatic, response is intentional. Reaction is about losing control to the moment. Response is about reclaiming control within the moment, and this choice, repeated over time, is what builds mental strength. There is a powerful difference between saying, "I can't handle this," and saying, "I will choose how I handle this." The first makes you a victim of circumstance. The second makes you a steward of your own resilience. History is filled with examples of people who understood this truth. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He could not control the walls around him, the bars that held him, the system that oppressed him. But he could control how he used his mind, how he nurtured forgiveness instead of bitterness, how he prepared to lead instead of collapse. His response shaped not only his life, but the future of his nation. On a smaller scale, we see this every day. A student who fails an exam may crumble under the weight of shame, or they may decide to study differently, work harder, and try again. A business owner who faces a devastating setback may shut down permanently, or they may innovate, adapt, and rebuild stronger. The event doesn't determine their strength, the response does. When you begin to see life this way, freedom appears. You stop wasting energy on what you cannot change. You stop trying to micromanage the uncontrollable. Instead, you invest energy in what is always within reach, your thoughts, your attitude, your choices. That shift not only strengthens your mind, but liberates your spirit. Imagine carrying two buckets. One is filled with frustration over things outside your control. The other is filled with intentional responses to things within your control. Which bucket do you think makes you heavier? Which bucket drains you of strength? The moment you set down the first and pick up the second, you become lighter, sharper, stronger. Even science supports this. Research in psychology consistently shows that people who adopt a mindset of response rather than control experience less stress, less anxiety, and greater resilience. Because instead of wrestling with the immovable, they focus on the actionable. They accept reality, but they do not surrender to it. They shape their lives through their choices, even when circumstances refuse to cooperate. So the question is not whether life will test you. It will. The question is not whether circumstances will disappoint you. They will. The question is, what will you do when it happens, because your response will either weaken you or strengthen you. The truth is, every challenge in life is a test of response. The world will provoke you. The world will frustrate you. The world will surprise you, and in every instance you have the same choice, to react blindly or to respond wisely, to let the uncontrollable define you, or to let your choices refine you. We live in a world obsessed with perfection. From the pictures we post on social media to the way we plan our careers, perfection is presented as the ultimate goal. People are taught to hide their flaws, to erase their mistakes, to pretend they never stumble. But this pursuit of perfection creates fragile minds, because when you build your strength on perfection, a single crack can shatter the whole foundation. True mental strength is not born from flawless execution. It is born from resilience, the ability to fall, to fail, to break, and still find the courage to rise again. Think of a child learning to walk. They do not stand up perfectly on the first try. They fall again and again, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. But each fall teaches them balance, each stumble strengthens their muscles, each attempt builds their confidence. If a child sought perfection, they would never walk. They would fear the fall too much to even try. Yet their resilience allows them to take risks, to push forward, and eventually to run. Adults forget this lesson. Somewhere along the way, we are told that failure is shameful, that mistakes make us weak, that stumbling exposes us. And so we avoid risk. We play it safe. We chase perfection not because it is possible, but because we are terrified of the alternative. But the irony is that avoiding failure also avoids growth. Strength is not created in the absence of failure. It is created in the recovery from it. Resilience means facing failure without letting it define you. It means standing up when perfection says you should stay down. It means saying, I am not finished, when the world says you are done. The strongest people are not those who never fall, but those who refuse to stay fallen. History is filled with people who remind us of this truth. Thomas Edison once said he didn't fail thousands of times when creating the light bulb. He discovered thousands of ways that didn't work. Resilience turned his failures into lessons. Michael Jordan, considered one of the greatest athletes of all time, missed more shots than most players ever took. He openly admitted that his repeated failures were the reason for his success. Resilience turned his missed shots into stepping stones. Perfection would have ended their journeys. Resilience carried them through. When you demand perfection from yourself, you create fear. Fear of making the wrong move, fear of looking foolish, fear of not meeting expectations. Fear becomes the chain that binds you. But resilience breaks that chain because resilience says, I will try anyway, and if I fail, I will try again. Fear loses its grip when failure is no longer final. Resilience is not just about bouncing back quickly. It is about learning from every setback. It is about using pain as a teacher, not an enemy. Every failure has something to reveal about your limits, your habits, your assumptions. When you approach mistakes with resilience, you mine them for wisdom. When you approach them with perfection, you hide from them, and you lose the lesson. Life will never reward perfection because perfection doesn't exist. Life rewards persistence. Life rewards those who endure the storm long enough to see the sun again. Life rewards those who take the broken pieces of their past and build something stronger. That is resilience. Think of bamboo. When heavy winds blow, a rigid tree may snap. But bamboo bends, it sways, it adapts, and when the storm passes, it is still standing. That is the power of resilience over perfection. Perfection is brittle, resilience is flexible. One breaks under pressure, the other grows stronger because of it. When we place resilience above perfection, we stop fearing failure and start embracing growth. We stop asking, what if I fall? And start asking, what will I learn if I do? We stop demanding flawless performances and start valuing courageous attempts. Mental strength blossoms in this mindset. Because when resilience is your standard, you are never truly defeated. The journey to becoming mentally strong is not about becoming untouchable. It is about becoming unshakable. Untouchable means nothing ever goes wrong. Unshakable means things do go wrong, but they do not destroy you. Resilience is the difference between those two. So many people quit on their dreams because perfection whispers, you're not ready. They think they need everything figured out before they begin. They believe they must execute flawlessly on the first try. But the truth is, no great story ever began with perfection. Every great story begins with failure, with trial, with mistakes. And every great ending is made possible because someone refused to quit when perfection slipped away. The pursuit of perfection makes you fragile. The practice of resilience makes you strong. If you wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect opportunity, you will wait forever. But if you embrace resilience, every imperfect step becomes progress. Every mistake becomes part of the journey. Every setback becomes preparation for the next attempt. Resilience is not glamorous. It is not neat. It is not clean. It is messy, filled with scars and bruises and second tries. But it is also beautiful because it reveals the depth of the human spirit. It shows that strength is not in never breaking, but in how many times you can rebuild. It proves that imperfection is not weakness. It is the stage on which resilience performs its greatest act. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid discomfort. We want the soft bed, the easy road, the smooth path. We design our routines to protect ourselves from struggle, from pain, from anything that pushes us beyond what feels safe. But here's the truth we often forget. Growth never happens in comfort. Muscles do not grow when they are at rest. They grow when they are torn and stretched beyond their limits. Minds do not expand when they are unchallenged. They expand when they are forced to think differently, to adapt, to overcome. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the forge in which strength is created. Think about the gym. When you lift weights, you are literally creating micro tears in your muscles. That discomfort, the burning sensation, the fatigue, is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of growth in progress. The body adapts to the stress, and the muscle grows stronger. The same principle applies to the mind. Mental strength is not developed in the moments of ease. It is developed in the moments when you want to quit, when everything inside you screams to stop, and yet you keep going. Every person who has achieved greatness has walked through discomfort. The writer who stares at a blank page for hours, struggling to find the words, but refuses to give up. The entrepreneur who faces rejection after rejection, who feels the sting of failure again and again, but continues to pitch their idea. The athlete who trains before dawn, who runs when their legs ache, who practices when no one is watching. None of these people found strength in comfort. They built their capacity by embracing discomfort as part of the process. Discomfort strips away illusions. It shows us who we really are when life is not easy. When everything is going well, it is easy to appear strong, to appear confident, to appear disciplined. But when things become hard, when obstacles appear, when pain becomes unavoidable, that is when true character is revealed. Discomfort exposes the gaps in our mindset, but it also provides the opportunity to fill them. Consider the story of a seed. For a seed to grow into a tree, it must first break. It must be buried in the dark, pushed by soil, pressured by forces it cannot control. The process is uncomfortable, but without it, the seed would never transform. The discomfort is not punishment, it is transformation in motion. We often pray for strength, but what we really want is the absence of difficulty. The irony is that strength can only come from difficulty. You cannot develop patience unless your patience is tested. You cannot develop courage unless you face fear. You cannot develop resilience unless you face setbacks. Every quality of mental strength is born from discomfort. Without it, growth is an illusion. This is why people who avoid discomfort remain stuck. They may stay safe, but they never expand. Their capacity remains small. Their courage remains unused. Their strength remains untested. But those who step into discomfort, who willingly choose the harder road, discover that the uncomfortable today becomes the unshakable tomorrow. Think about running. If you only ever jog short distances that feel easy, your endurance never improves. But if you push a little farther, if you let your lungs burn and your legs ache, your capacity grows. The discomfort you feel today builds the ability you will rely on tomorrow. The same applies to every area of life. Facing uncomfortable conversations strengthens relationships. Taking on unfamiliar challenges strengthens confidence. Standing in the fire of rejection strengthens identity. Most people run from discomfort because they mistake it for danger. But discomfort is not the same as harm. Discomfort is a signal that you are stretching beyond your normal limits. Danger destroys. Discomfort develops. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who avoid discomfort, but the ones who distinguish between the two and lean into the experiences that grow them. We must begin to see discomfort as a teacher. It teaches us that we can survive more than we thought. It teaches us that pain does not last forever. It teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. When you embrace discomfort, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing it, you unlock parts of yourself you never knew existed. Look at every breakthrough moment in your life, and you will likely find discomfort sitting right beside it. The day you spoke in front of a crowd for the first time. The moment you made a difficult choice that changed everything. The time you risked failure to try something new. None of those moments were comfortable, but all of them expanded your capacity. Each one made you stronger, more capable, more resilient. The people who change the world are not the ones who chase comfort. They are the ones who embrace discomfort because they know that within it lies growth. They are willing to do what others avoid. They are willing to suffer a little longer, endure a little harder, persist a little further. And that willingness is what sets them apart. Discomfort builds capacity because it forces you to adapt. It pushes you beyond what you thought you could handle, and in doing so, it redefines your limits. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once seemed unbearable becomes part of your story. Each time you face discomfort and push through, your mind records the evidence that you can endure. And the more evidence you collect, the stronger your belief in yourself becomes. When people talk about success or mental strength, they often imagine one grand moment, a breakthrough, a sudden transformation. A single decision that changes everything, but that's not how real strength is built. Real power does not come from what you do once. It comes from what you do over and over again. The small choices, the daily habits, the repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment, these are what shape an unshakable mind. Consistency is where strength is forged. Think of water. A single drop does little. But drop after drop, falling in the same place, can carve valleys into stone. The stone is not shaped by force. It is shaped by persistence. The same is true of the human mind. One act of courage is powerful, but repeated courage creates character. One day of discipline is admirable, but repeated discipline builds identity. Consistency creates power because it transforms effort into permanence. The world celebrates intensity. We admire the person who pushes themselves to the limit for one great performance. But intensity fades quickly. Consistency is quieter, less glamorous, but infinitely more powerful. Anyone can sprint for a short distance. It takes strength to keep running day after day when no one is watching, when motivation has disappeared, when the work feels boring and routine. That is where greatness is born, not in the sprint but in the marathon. Mental strength grows in the same way. You do not become resilient because of one great victory. You become resilient because you choose again and again not to quit. You do not become disciplined because of one tough decision. You become disciplined because you make the right decision consistently, even when it's hard, even when no one notices. The accumulation of these choices builds a mind that cannot be easily shaken. Look at athletes who perform at the highest level. Yes, they are talented, but talent alone does not explain their mastery. Behind every medal, behind every victory, are years of repetitive practice. Early mornings when they didn't feel like training. Long nights when they were exhausted but still showed up. It was not the single game that made them champions. It was the thousands of hours of consistent effort that no one else saw. The same principle applies beyond sports. A writer does not produce a great book in one night of inspiration. They write consistently, page after page, often in silence, often battling doubt. An entrepreneur does not build a successful company with one brilliant idea. They build it through consistent execution, meeting after meeting, setback after setback, refining, improving, adjusting. A leader does not gain trust in one grand gesture. They earn it through consistent actions, through showing up reliably, through aligning words with deeds over time. Consistency is powerful because it compounds. Like interest in a bank account, the small deposits of effort accumulate into something far greater than their individual parts. A single workout might not change your body, but a year of consistent training transforms it. Reading one page might not change your mind, but a year of consistent learning reshapes your perspective. Saving $1 might not change your future, but consistent saving creates freedom. Small acts multiplied by time equal transformation. Yet consistency is often the hardest part, because it is not fueled by excitement, but by discipline. It asks you to show up when the feelings are gone. It asks you to keep going when progress seems invisible. It asks you to trust that the little things matter even when no one is applauding. But this is precisely what makes it powerful. Because when you train yourself to stay consistent, you are training yourself to lead, not to follow. You are training yourself to rely on principle, not mood, and that is what makes mental strength unshakable. Consistency also builds identity. Every time you choose an action, you reinforce a belief about yourself. When you consistently follow through, you start to see yourself as someone who is disciplined, someone who is reliable, someone who does not quit. That belief becomes part of your identity, and once it becomes identity, it no longer feels like effort. It feels like who you are. This is why consistency is transformative. It doesn't just change your results, it changes your sense of self. Think of someone climbing a mountain. Each step feels small compared to the size of the peak. Each step feels like it barely makes a difference, but step after step, day after day, eventually brings them to the summit. Consistency is those steps. It is the choice to move forward when the top feels impossibly far. It is the decision to trust the process, not the immediate result. When you look back at your life, the moments that define you will not be the single bursts of effort. They will be the long stretches of consistency that slowly shaped you. The times you kept showing up for your family, even when life was chaotic. The times you kept practicing your craft, even when no one noticed. The times you kept choosing the right path, even when the wrong one was easier. These are the moments that build strength. Power belongs to those who keep showing up. Not just when it is convenient, not just when it is exciting, but especially when it is difficult and dull. That kind of consistency builds a foundation so strong that nothing can easily shake it. It is not built overnight, but brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice. And when it is built, it becomes unbreakable. Mental strength is not some rare gift reserved for a chosen few. It is not about being fearless, flawless, or untouchable. It is about living with purpose, responding with intention, rising through failure, embracing discomfort, and showing up with consistency. When you know your why, your struggles become meaningful. When you shift from control to response, you take back your power. When you choose resilience over perfection, you refuse to let failure define you. When you embrace discomfort, you expand your capacity beyond what you thought was possible. And when you commit to consistency, you transform small actions into lasting strength. The truth is, life will test you, it will push you, it will try to break you, but mental strength is not built in the absence of those tests. It is built because of them. Every challenge, every setback, every uncomfortable moment is an opportunity to grow into someone stronger than you were yesterday. So the call is simple but not easy. Do not chase perfection. Do not wait for comfort. Do not try to control the uncontrollable. Instead, ground yourself in your why. Choose your responses wisely. Stand back up every time you fall. Lean into the fire of discomfort. And keep showing up day after day until your strength is no longer something you try to build, but something you simply are.